Hello, good evening. A warm welcome to you. This is Starr today here on Starr 103.5 FM. I'm Tutuwaa Danso. And listen to the stories leading the pack this evening. Coming up tonight, Poko Apoko, President Mahama steadily forming his cabinet to help him execute his vision of building a better, prosperous Ghana. Today on Starr Today, we interrogate the latest batch of ministerial nominees released by the presidency, which will see Haruna Idrisu heading to the Education Ministry. And also in this broadcast, we have some reaction to the nominations for you, especially from teachers across the country who wants the minister designate to consult stakeholders in his decision making.
In fact, the issues are already documented. It's just a matter of him going through them and meeting the stakeholders, and to ensure that anytime he's taking a decision, stakeholders are involved, so that he will take the best decision that will affect positively the educational outcomes that we all desire.
Tonight in the bulletin, we will get some reactions from the Executive Director of the Institute of Education Studies, Dr. Peter Anti, on his expectations. Now, also in this bulletin, 7 out of 25 ministerial nominees so far. Can the president make good his promise to appoint 30% female representation to his cabinet? We have the details for you shortly. Plus, sit with the convener of the Affirmative Action Coalition and managing director of ALC Law Consult, Sheila Menka Preko. And later, we will also tell you why the Institute for Democratic Governance has reiterated calls for the election of a metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executive on partisan lines.
What we need to make local government stronger and effective and very oriented towards serving the needs of the people is to have MMDCs who would compete just like any election we've had.
We have the details of these and many other stories in this 90 minutes broadcast. Do stay.
Starr News is coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takrady, Zeps 95.9 FM in Zebila, Nissim 100.1 FM in Lamshao, MyStar Radio in the USA. Also live on Facebook on Starr 103.5 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Starr 103.5 FM. Starr News. Informed, in depth, in touch.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. I'm Tutuwaa Danso. So this bulletin is also streaming live on Facebook on Starr 103.5 FM. Now, little by little, President John Dramani Mahama is steadily forming his cabinet to help him execute his vision of building a better, prosperous Ghana. Now, the president earlier today released the latest batch of ministerial nominees, which includes Haruna Idrisu as Education Minister, Governs Kwame Agboja as Roads and Highways Minister, Dr. Agnes Na Momolati as Gender Minister, among others. Now, Mike, I beg your pardon. Let me just go through the list with you that was released earlier today. So we have Wilbert Preti Bentum, the Western North Regional Minister, Ejiamaya Kopiniotre, the Central Regional Minister, and Joseph Nelson, Western Regional Minister. But let's go over the phone lines now, because I told you that Haruna Idrisu is headed for the Education Ministry and have a conversation with Dr. Peter Anti. Doc, thank you very much for your time. I mean, first off, what are you surprised by this nomination?
Extremely surprised. Extremely surprised. In fact, I've spoken to most of the players in the sector, and I can tell you that this was not what most people were expecting. The presidents have really driven all of us.
Let's talk about Haruna Idrisu. I mean, we all know that he's got a wealth of experience in government. I mean, in your assessment, how do you think his expertise will come to bear in resolving the issues that has confronted the education ministry?
All right, so let me say this. I'm going to be extremely measured with my assessment of the Honorable Minister Designate, because the last time I was so much optimistic about someone going to the education sector, we ended up being disappointed. What I can say is that I think this is a man who's got a lot of experience in the governance of this country. He's got good human relations. I have spoken to people who say that his relation with people is top notch. It means that he's able to relate very well. In fact, he's headed the Ministry of Labor, Employment and Labor Relations before. Mm-hmm. So I think it is a strategic appointment from the president, because this is a ministry that is always dealing with workers' agitation. Now, even currently as we're talking, CITAG is on strike. And we don't know which other union is planning to go on strike. The next time you hear NAT, you hear NAGAT, you hear UTAG. So this is a ministry that needs someone that understands labor relations and will be able to, as much as possible, relate with the people in that particular sector. And I think that in that light, Haruna fits in very well. I think that he's also got he's also somebody who listens. I'm sure that he's got a very good listening star, that he's able to listen broadly to all kinds of suggestions that are brought to his attention. So for me, I think it is an interesting appointment to watch out for. He comes with a lot of experience, not in the sector like with an educational technical experience, but he comes with a lot of experience in terms of how to manage such a portfolio. So we'll be watching closely to see how we'll be able to navigate around the various challenges that has engulfed the ministry.
I just need some clarity here. You really believe that he's going to be able to deal with all the labor agitations that has confronted the ministry?
Yes, a quick assessment of his time as a Minister of Employment and Labor Relations, you would say that there was not much in terms of labor agitation. So in that perspective, I can say that area is a little bit covered, but definitely we would have to wait and see how he's going to go around his relation with the various associations and stakeholders in the sector, especially at a time where a lot of propositions have been put on the table, and we are expecting a lot to change within the education system. It will be interesting to see how it goes around all this.
Now, when I asked for your initial comment, you told me that you were surprised about his nomination. If you were surprised, who were you expecting to occupy that slot?
You know, I'm not going to do this. But there were names that were being mentioned.
What are some of these names?
I won't mention.
No. You just have to let us know, because I didn't hear such names.
From the manifesto committee, there were members in the manifesto committee that were tipped to be going to the ministry. Then there were names that were mentioned outside the manifesto committee. I heard the name of Honorable Okujeto, even to the extent that he was being tipped to be going to the ministry. So there were names that were being put out. Eventually, Haruna was not one of those names that we heard. And all those I've spoken to in the sector seems a little bit surprised. And I think that is good for us, because you were not expecting someone like that, and then he's coming in. You have to adjust your nose and other things to be able to see how you're going to work with him. I think it's good.
Okay, now let's talk about some of the long-standing issues that has confronted the education ministry. I mean, in current times, we can talk about the free SHS education, for instance, and also the feeding challenges. What are your expectations of him? in dealing with some of these issues?
Now, because for me, let me say this, because he is not a technical person in terms of education, I think he will need to listen more. I think he will need to consult more. I think he will need to surround himself with people with a technical know-how who will be able to give him the requisite information and guidance when it comes to some of these challenges that we are facing. The free SHS, challenges at basic education, challenges at technical and vocational education front. The past government started the STEM policy.
Mm-hmm.
He will need to pay attention to that. There are plans to introduce a free level 100 for the first year students. So there are a lot of things on his desk. In fact, go to the colleges of education, a lot of challenges there. Strike, allowances, all those things are there. He will need to understand the enormity of the challenges within the sector, and then use his experience and skill as a lawyer, as a legislator, as somebody, an astute politician, to navigate through this. I think that we needed somebody of his caliber in the ministry because of the numerous experience that he has gathered in the governance of this country. So he comes in with a lot of experience in terms of governance, in terms of legislation, in terms of relations. But when it comes to the technicalities of the sector, I think he will need to listen more to be able to excel in that area.
Okay, so going forward, what are some of the key issues that you'd like him to highlight in the education ministry?
I think his job is clearly cut out for him. He's supposed to convey a national consultative assembly to look at the whole educational system in Ghana. I think from that consultative assembly, issues will come up. He can align that with the manifesto of the party, and then they will be able to set his priorities right. But I know definitely that basic education should be top-notch on his agenda. I know that the secondary education, free SHS, will be top-notch on his agenda. I know that he will also look at tertiary education. Let me even say this. He's headed the Ministry of Trade and Industry before. There's a lot of talk in this country about our curriculum and our education system being so detached from industry in this country. So with his experience from that particular ministry, I think we should be able to find ways and means to link our educational system to industry, so that people coming out from the educational system would not find it difficult fitting into industry. So there are a lot of things that he can do, and I think that the first thing on his agenda should be getting this consultative assembly carried out, and then teasing out the issues that will come out of it, and then you move in with that. But I can say that with experience in managing labor unions, we might not experience a lot of agitations as we have experienced in the past.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for speaking to us. I've been engaging Dr. Peter Antipati. He's Executive Director for the Institute of Education Studies. Now, he was talking about Harina's nomination as the Education Minister and his expectations from him. But let me just run you through Harina's profile. And he is a Ghanaian politician, lawyer, business magnate, and leader with extensive experience in Ghana's parliament. Well, he's held roles ranging from deputy ranking members to majority and minority leader in various parliaments under the Fourth Republic. He also served as Minister for Employment and Labour Relations. And you heard Dr. Peter Anti talk extensively about the fact that this portfolio he held may help resolve the labor-related agitation issues in the education ministry. Well, he's also a bachelor's degree holder in sociology from the University of Ghana, and also a barrister at law and member of the Ghana Bar Association since 2000. As I told you earlier, there have been a lot of reactions, that have greeted his nomination, but one of such has been from Kofi Asare, who is the executive director for EduWatch, and in a Facebook post, he says that earlier today, I received a call from the Minister of Education nominee informing EduWatch of his nomination and courting our support. Unlike the outgone minister who was my friend, I have never met Haruna Idrisu in person. I, however, know him to be an influential development advocate and former students leader. I'll go on and read this shortly, but let's go over the phone lines now and engage the Vice President of NAGRAT. He is Jacob Anaba, and he's joined us now. Thank you very much for your time this evening. First off, what are your expectations from the Education Minister designates?
Thank you very much, Tutuwaa, and good evening to your listeners. Let me congratulate him for this nomination. We will support him to succeed if he does the right thing. So we expect that already the issues are known. Our challenges have been well documented. It is for him to go through the books and then make contact with the necessary stakeholders and have discussion with them on the way forward. Most of the issues have been well documented. The solutions are well known. It is for him to engage and carry on the good work that has been done already. And I will believe that with the support of every Ghanaian, he should be able to succeed because he has a lot of experience at the background because he has been a minister before. He was a minister of employment. He had engaged with unions, so he knows how the unions operate. He was minister for communication, and he knows how to communicate. So we trust that he will, with this experience, be able to support and bring education to the level that we all need and require.
I asked, the executive director for first about, some of the key policies that he believes this minister should focus on. I want to ask you the same question. For you, as a stakeholder in the education sector, what are some of the policies that you believe that Haruna Idrisu should focus on to help our educational system be better than it already is?
So, as we speak, we have what we call the free estate policy. The unfortunate issue is that we don't have a policy document that guides all of us. The government wanted to lay, a law or something before the Parliament recess, but they could not do that. I think he has to look at that and make sure that we have a policy document that will guide all of us. Because the challenges that are coming are issues that we all need to sit at the table and discuss and have a solution to them. We know the issues and we know the solutions. The NDC promised certain direction. We are looking forward to that. For example, they indicated that there will be a dedicated funding for the free SHS. We want to see what that means, where are we getting the money from, and how dedicated is that funding going to be? Will it be able to support all the facets of the free SHS, or are there aspects that they will expect parents to also support? These are areas that we need to look at. We, as teachers, have some agreement with government already, and the NDC party promised that they were going to meet those agreements. For example, the private area allowance to teachers, they promised that they were going to implement it if they are voted into power. So we hope that they will carry on with their promise. And then we have a scheme of service for the GS staff that has not been signed into operation. So we expect that to also come into operation.
Finally, before I let you go, did this nomination surprise you?
A surprise? It is a prerogative of the president to nominate. He decides who, based on advice from many quarters. He is a man of integrity. He has been a minority leader. He has been a minister before, so he has the experience. So any one of that experience shouldn't surprise me. And that position is for political leadership, and he's a political fellow, so it doesn't surprise me. But what I will say is that, one of the problems we have is that when the ministry interferes with agency, for example, in our case, DES, then there is an issue. Our advice, he is my senior from Navasco. Has a folio number. When I meet him, I will ask for his folio number. I will ask that he will ensure that DES work efficiently because they are supposed to carry out the policy that the ministry formulates. So they should allow them to work and ensure and supervise their work. And with that, I'm sure he will succeed.
Thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. I've been engaging Jacob Anaba. He's the Vice President of NAGRAT. Now, one of the appointments which has generated some excitement is that of George Oporiado as the Minister Designate for Youth Development and Empowerment. In a statement shortly after his nomination, he expressed gratitude to President Mahama and pledged to lead with humility and a steadfast vision for a brighter future. Let me just run you through who Pablo is to help you make a better informed decision as to whether he can perform in that ministry or not. So, Mr. Jojo Poriado Esquire is a lawyer, local government official, business executive, and accomplished party organizer. His political activism and organizational skills earned him the position of a national youth organizer of the NDC, a role he has held since 2018. And during his time, he has mentored several young men and women who now hold key positions within the NDC. He's also a former municipal chief executive for the Akuapem North Municipal Assemblies. That was between 2009 and 2017. So that is the profile, a brief profile for George Oporiado Esquire, also known as Pablo there. But how will this nomination sit with the Ghana Youth Manifesto Coalition? We're going to have a conversation on the back of that shortly. Joining us is Christopher Wisdom Penu. We don't have him yet.
Starr today, first, fast, and credible.
Starr News is coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takrady, Zeps 95.9 FM in Zebila, Nissim 100.1 FM in Lamshao, My Star Radio in the USA, also live on Facebook on Starr 103.5 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Starr 103.5 FM. Starr News. Informed, in depth, in touch.
Now, you remember that road infrastructure was a key topic in last year's elections, with the then candidate Mahama challenging the Akufo-Addo administration's claims of completing 12,000 kilometers of road. Now, with Governor Kwame Agboja, the majority chief whip, nominated as the Minister Designate for Roads and Highways, we explore industry perspectives on this nomination and its implications. And joining us to do that is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry, Emmanuel Cherry. Thank you very much for your time this evening, sir. Now, what is your assessment, really, of Ghana's road infrastructure currently, and with Kwame Governors Agboja? What do you think of his priorities? What do you think his priorities should be in addressing the road issues that we have in the country?
Okay, first of all, let me take this opportunity to salute you and your cherished listeners, viewers across the entire world, and then also Happy New Year to all of you for the good work done as well. Sincerely, we must first of all congratulate Honorable Kwame Agboja government for such an appointment being given to him. He worked for it, I may say, because whilst in opposition, he served on the committee for roads and transport. And you and I know that he has been very loud in that particular committee, and he served a very good purpose as well. As a friend of the chamber, we work closely with him a lot on these challenges that have bedeviled the entire road sector. So sincerely, we must thank His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for giving him such an honor, because we believe strongly that there is so much work in there. And then Kwame Agboja also happens to be an industry person who is a member of Ghana Institute of Architects, comes with a cloud of expertise and then professionalism on the table. So we must congratulate him and then thank His Excellency the President for such an honor done us.
Now, when you say that there's so much work to be done in this industry especially, what exactly are you referring to? I mean, what are the key issues that has confronted the road infrastructure sector?
You know, with the road infrastructure sector, there are a lot of issues in there. And as a minister, your responsibility is to try as much as possible to be a liaison officer between the government of Ghana and the good people of Ghana as well. And you and I know that in infrastructure development, we have the private sector player participation as well as government policy. So as a minister responsible for roads and highways, your responsibility is to first of all look into the policies of government that possibly will have a buy-in of the private sector players, as well as how to coordinate your sector performance, and then possibly have monitoring and doing evaluation of the road infrastructure assessment in the entire country, and see the best development of road within the country. You and I know that road infrastructure has become very hot cake on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Every community, as we speak today, is calling for road development, road infrastructure development. Anybody that goes to president or president visit, the first call is road. So therefore, there is so much challenge in there, and then you and I know that road infrastructure is also capital intensive. So there is a lot of challenge in there that he needs to find a way to manage. And you need to develop a tough skin as well, because if you are not very careful and you want to follow the call of everybody, you end up becoming a liar and then possibly also run the entire sector into debt, as we are witnessing now today.
Now, let's talk about one of the issues that, we all know is a problem when it comes to road infrastructure in the country. That is with the issue of the many and tired roads. And there have been some suggestions for the government to increase private sector participation. What's your take on that?
It's quite, remember, I personally, on behalf of Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry, was the one who championed the PPP policy on this motorway redevelopment. So therefore, it's something that as Chamber, we have prioritized it, knowing and believing that if we should leave road infrastructure development solely to the doorstep of government, if care is not taken, we may not grow, we may not get anywhere as a country. So therefore, the best thing for us to do is to at least have a platform that the private sector together, the government come together and then deliberate over the issues and see exactly what can the private sector bring to the table. So the best thing for us to do as a country is for us as a matter of urgency to prioritize most of these particular pipeline projects or pipeline road projects that you and I believe that are very paramount to the developmental agenda of the entire country, especially linking Accra to Kumasi, Takoradi, Volta region, Burkina in the north and thereabouts. All those particular roads must be prioritized as a matter of urgency so that transportation can be a bit shortened for us to at least benefit from each usage. So these are some of the issues that we as a chamber have tabled before the previous government. And thankfully, the new government has also come. We met them during the manifesto draft stage. All these issues have been tabled before them. And therefore, it's nothing new to us. And we believe that they also have our concerns in there, which has found a space in their manifesto. All that we need to do is for us to at least constantly engage the government through its sector ministries, making sure that the promises be made and then the issues be tabled there as policies are being adhered to accordingly.
Now, on Monday, during the finance minister designate the vetting, he did make mention of the fact that road tolls will be reintroduced. Talk to me about that. Is that a really good initiative?
Same as well as we speak here. The scrapping of the road toll was not in the best interest of the entire country. Currently, as we speak, the road fund has been mortgaged. So therefore, there is a challenge in there. The revenue that's supposed to come into the kitty for the road maintenance of the entire country has been shortchanged. So where do we get the needed available funds to reconstruct or develop or maintain our roads? So the road toll was part of the avenues or the revenues that generate into the road fund. Now that that has been scrapped off, we loses a lot of millions of Ghana cedis, 78 million Ghana cedis per month and thereabout, which can do a lot for you and I. So therefore, immediately it was scrapped, we came out openly condemning the actions of then Minister Honorable Amwakwata that it wasn't a good test, and then we then quickly call upon the government to reintroduce it, but it must be modernized. Thankfully, the government then, at the latter stage, were trying to at least buy into that and then introduce it through some of the major road infrastructure. Fortunately, unfortunately for them, they have lost the election and new government has come to play. You and I, as we speak, as a media, you followed most of our press conferences and engagement with government. We went as far as to Parliament, which on the minister designate now, Honorable Agboja, was part of that particular committee that we tabled this issue before them. Thankfully, he has been nominated in now. And then if the finance minister said he want to reintroduce it, it's going to be a plus to the sector. But it must be introduced in a modern way, not the old usual way that you and I know that it will cause a lot of traffic, that is going to cost man hour, and then a lot of health hazard implications and that about. So we have a modern way of this particular collection of these particular tools. So those are the things that we need to engage ourselves into so that we find a better way of collecting of these road tools for us to be able to upgrade our road networks and then do the patchings as well as construct new ones.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time this evening. That was Emmanuel Cherry. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry. Away from that, let's talk about gender now. And so far, President Mahama has nominated about 7 women out of his 25 ministers. And this loosely translates to some 28%, or making him look on track to achieving his promise of 30% female representation in his cabinet. Let's have a conversation also on the back of that. And we've been joined in the studios by Sheila Menka Premo. She is a convener for the Affirmative Action Law Coalition. Thank you very much, ma'am. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you very much too for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So just a few weeks ago, you were talking about the fact that government appointment has to be fair in terms of female representation, in all sectors. We've seen 7 out of the 25 so far. What's your assessment of that? Is that fair enough?
Thank you very much. So speaking on behalf of the Affirmative Action Law Coalition, our interest is in ensuring that this law, which was passed in 2024, that's Affirmative Action Gender Equity Act of 2024, Act 1121, is implemented. And the law requires that from the time it is passed, that's from 2024 to 2026, at least 30% of appointees, as far as the executive is concerned, should be women. This is because in many, over the years, the number of women in terms of ministers' position, in terms of CEOs of big corporate companies,
organizations,
with government's interest in have been men. So we are very happy that so far, out of the 25 appointed so far, 7 are women, making it 28%. That means that we are inching close to
the 30%
the 30% mark in the indicators. And we are hoping that as more appointments are made, this ratio will not go down.
Okay.
It would even be either retained or get better.
Okay.
Yes, I know they have up to 2026 to be able to achieve the target. But the earlier you start, the better. And I think that's a very good sign. And we are praying to have more women.
Okay.
We are also happy about the profile of the women who have been appointed. These are well-qualified, educated women who have experience, who are being appointed to various positions. So we have a lot of expectations of them, that they will perform and perform well, so that will open the doorway for other women to also be given opportunity to aspire to these higher positions.
Okay, let's talk about Dr. Agnes Namumulati, who is the Minister Designate for the Gender, Children and Social Protection Ministry. What do you think her contributions will be, to solving the issues that has confronted that ministry? Because we all know that that ministry especially has been bedeviled with a lot of challenges.
Yes, it's a very challenging ministry. The ministry responsible for gender, for children, which is these are issues by themselves, and then social protection. So these are huge issues which have been lumped together. So it's a very challenging ministry. I believe that with her background, she will be able to contribute a lot towards progress in that ministry. I know from the little I know of her background, she has some kind of development background with an emphasis on gender and development. So I think that she has the necessary qualifications that would enable her to perform well.
Okay.
I've interacted with her as a member of parliament. The work that we do sometimes takes us to parliament, to meet the Gender and Children Committee and other committees. So we've met with her on a few occasions, particularly during the processing of the then affirmative action bill. And she seems to know what she's about, I would say, and seems very interested in gender issues.
I mean, now that you're talking about her qualification, I'd just like to be fair to my viewers and the audience, I beg your pardon, and just read to them about her profile. So Mrs. Agnes Namumulati is a seasoned legislator and development expert with over 20 years of experience managing projects in governance, health, education, and women's rights. As a member of parliament for the Krowa constituency, she serves on key parliamentary committees, shaping a national policy and advancing gender and community-focused initiatives. Now, with a PhD in African Studies, Dr. Lati has held leadership roles such as General Secretary of the National Association of Local Authorities of Ghana, NALA.
Development goals, which says that by the year 2030, all member states should have achieved parity as far as gender is concerned. And so it's an international problem, and it's also our own local issue as well. Again, we in terms of why we are where we are, we are Ghanaians, so we have a lot of traditional norms and cultural traditional sayings, etc., which shows that women are not necessarily leaders. For instance, the tree Akan people will say back is a tree, meaning it is men who are supposed to have leadership, etc., etc. Some of the religions also push for male leadership as compared to women leadership, and therefore it's been found that it's like if you exclude women from leadership, it's a whole resource of the country is being pushed aside. And it is also important that women sit at the table where decisions are made so that they can influence it. Because there are certain things that men think about, but they will not think about some things that women won't necessarily think about. When it comes to even lawmaking, I'm sure in this country, we've been here when we heard of a law which was passed. It was a tax law. It ended up increasing the price of sanitary pads and for women. And women too, our challenges are such that we are different levels. For those in the urban areas, it wasn't a big problem, but the women, young girls in the rural areas became a big issue for them. It's an intersectional issue. So inclusivity is very important. And there's research out there which shows that in countries where there's inclusivity when it comes to leadership positions, their development is much better and is more sustainable. So for me, pushing for female leadership is very, very important. And therefore, I'm very happy that we have this law in place, and it is consciously getting all the sectors in this country ready to ensure that we have adequate female leadership, to ensure that we have better development in our country.
If you were to, be in a position to give advice to the minister designates for the gender ministry, for instance, what would you tell her to highlight on? What would be the key policies that you'd ask her to be on the lookout for, because which you believe have affected that ministry for a very long time? What are some of these issues that you'd ask her to focus on?
Okay, so there are quite a number of issues. For me, the one that is closest to me is this affirmative action gender equity law, which has been in the pipeline for a long time. Unfortunately, was passed last year. The passage of the law is not enough. There's a need for what we call implementing legislation. Every act of parliament, there's room for regulations or legislative instruments to, implement certain parts of it. So I'm hoping that she'll make it a priority to ensure that this LI gets done. Again, the law also requires the setting up of a body known as the Gender Equity Committee that will do the implementation. That body is yet to be constituted. So I'm hoping that she would also put this body in place as early as possible, and also look for resources for them to do their work.
Okay.
One of the key things they're supposed to do is to have a plan of action on how to implement this law, and to have a baseline study to see where every sector is, so that when it comes to measuring progress, they know how to do that. So getting this law implemented is one of the key areas. Again, one of the policies in this country that underpins this law is that what we call the national gender policy. There was one in place. There was a 2015 one which expired, was for 5 years, expired in 2020. I know that there's an initiative to get a new one done. There's a draft there as of 2023, but it's yet to be adopted. We need it also to be adopted because it will give guidance as far as issues to do with gender is concerned at the ministry. There are also other laws, domestic violence law, which has been in place since 2007. Challenges have been found with it. There's an initiative to review it. When it comes to children, I don't know if I can venture from gender to children. Children are also one of the areas which is under the mandate of this ministry. The Children's Act, which has been in place since 1998, also some challenges have been found with it. There is, as I'm speaking, a bill to amend most parts of it to make it more efficient in protecting our children. That bill also hasn't been processed. So there are a number of laws that need to be addressed. Then also on the other angle of the ministry, which is social protection, there's also a social protection bill, which is also has also been prepared and it's yet to be processed. So I'm sure that she should also see. I'm expecting that she should see this also one of the important bills to pursue, so that there'll be some structure in terms of all the various social protection initiatives that we are all are being implemented.
Okay. Now, given this 28% nomination that we've seen for the women so far, what do you envisage for women in politics in the next few years to come?
Okay. So this law also applies to women in politics as well. And the expectation is that we would have more women in politics as we are speaking. Currently, I'm sure that we are all keeping track of what's happening in Parliament in terms of those who have been elected. Out of the 276-member Parliament, from the numbers that we have, with a few areas still not very clear, it's just about 41 that we have, which is a very low number. I don't think that will reach 15%. So we're very, very low. Yes, the law came in when the major parties had already finished their primaries. So it wasn't possible for it to have an impact. And laws are of prospective effect. A law can't have a retrospective effect. So we are hoping that as the law is implemented, we would see more and more women gaining positions within their political parties, as well as being in a position to be elected and nominated into various positions. There is a bit of a challenge. One of the weakest parts of the law is that to do with political party representation. Okay. So it encourages the parties to also abide by the indicators. But it doesn't, in countries that have managed to increase the numbers of women in parliament, etc., it's like a mandatory quota that is pushed. And it is usually found in constitutional provisions. Unfortunately for us, in our constitution, the criteria for who qualifies to go to parliament doesn't include gender inclusion. It includes things about your age, about where you live, about your whatever, not having a criminal past, etc. So there's a need for us to go further, push for constitutional amendments of some articles in the Constitution, I think 93 and 94, to ensure that gender inclusivity becomes one part. That way, once that is done, then the provisions in the Act can then be strengthened to make it mandatory, so that by the next elections, 2028, we'll be in a position to ensure that we have more women. Out of a country, in our population, we have about 50.7, almost 51% of the population being women. How many are in parliament now? The previous parliament had 14.5. This current one, it will just increase very marginally because the numbers are so few. Only about 41 here have made it. We need to be able to make a big difference in that. And then within the political parties themselves, we don't want them to be only in the women's wing. They should also be in positions to be chairpersons and vice chairpersons, etc., in there.
But is it always, the problem of governments when it comes to low leadership of women? Are the women themselves ready to take up these roles? Are they ready to contest on the parliamentary front, for instance? Are they ready to contest, when it comes to these big tables that we expect them to be seated on? Are they ready for that?
I think so. There are lots of challenges. But I think that there are many women who are willing and able. I'm sure if you kept track of the elections that took place. There are places where even women are fighting against other women to be able to gain positions. The problem is, remember, I mentioned the sociocultural views about women and leadership, etc., etc., and therefore it takes an extra strong woman to be able to stand for position, to be able to. We have a first past the post system. You have to be able to pass the primaries in your party before you also have to stand the national election. It's very challenging. Politics also requires a lot of money, and women who are stressed with using most of their money to look after their children also have very little money packed to be able to engage in it. Yes, people rely on what is known as godfather system. I haven't heard of a godmother system. And the godfather system sometimes comes with challenges because, the godfather will invest in your election, and then when the time for the call comes, you don't know what the implications would be for people. So it is very challenging, but I believe that there are lots of qualified women who want to stand and who should be given the opportunity to stand. In some countries, I know that even within our own country, most of the parties started their own small form of affirmative action in lowering some of the requirements for standing in various positions. But it still wasn't enough. We need an intentional action to be able to get more women in our parliament.
Okay.
Which will reflect the population.
Okay, absolutely. We have, seen a number of women advocacy groups advocating for women to strive to be better for themselves. But if you say that, women are still faced with a lot of challenges when it comes to, contesting, especially on the political fronts, is it an indication that these groups have not done so much in terms of, making sure the grounds are fertile for women to contest in some of these parliamentary elections that you talk about?
Yes, there are a number of advocacy groups that have been doing work in trying to encourage, train, sensitize, equip women to be active in party politics. But most of these NGOs are financially constrained.
Okay.
If you're doing, work at that level, you need funding. And for some years now, it's been very difficult to get funding to sustain the NGO itself. How much more to run programs? If you're going to run a training program for people, you have to house them, you have to give refreshments, you have to give transportation in many instances. So I think that many of them have been challenged. A few have had funding and have done some of the work, but I guess it hasn't been enough. So as an advocate myself, I would advocate that those who can support more programs to try to educate and sensitize and strengthen women right from the school level. We don't wait till they're out and then they're working and they're struggling with life, etc. But to encourage people to enter politics as well as other meaningful places that will contribute towards development at a very young age, and they can be encouraged to come up.
Absolutely. Now, we earlier talked about the minister designates for the gender ministry. I want us to touch briefly on the minister designates for tourism, culture, and creative arts. That's Ablajifa Gomashi. What do you make of her nomination?
She's also another wonderful woman. Also interacted with her in Parliament, and I think she also did some work within the development space a little bit. I think that she's been a deputy minister. I believe she's been a deputy minister there before. She herself is a creative person. So with the experience she's had as a deputy minister before and her interest in advancing the creative world, I believe that she would also do very well. She's also served as an MP for a while, so she knows about the lawmaking process and what to do to be able to get things done. So I believe that she would also do well.
Okay.
Yes.
What about Emilia Arthur, the minister designates for the fishes and aquaculture?
I also know her a little bit from the development world. Very intelligent, very smart woman who's done, I know she's done a lot of development work.
Okay.
So I believe that with the experience that she has, I also believe that she would also do well. Because she's a knowledgeable what I remember about her is that she's a very knowledgeable person. So I believe that she would be able to deliver.
Okay, but do you think just knowledge is enough?
An experience, I think, because she's also worked for quite a while. She should be, she's got an experience, knowledge as well as experience. I would add experience in some fields. In the development field, I know she's done a lot of work. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Now, there's
I think she'll
also
do well.
Elizabeth Ofosu, the minister designates for trade, agribusiness, and industry.
Okay, I know her as she's a lawyer by profession, and I know she's been the deputy minister I believe, or minister, substantive minister at tourism, yes. And I think she did well. I recall at a point there was an advisory committee at the University of Ghana School of African Studies, and I was on the board with her, and I was quite impressed with what she had. So I believe that having served as a minister before, she has all that experience. So I believe that she'll be able to put it into effect in this other area, which is also challenging, that she's been given.
Okay. There are a number of regional minister nominees, but I want to skip and go to the Greater Accra Regional Minister designate. That's Linda Oklu. What's your take on Linda?
I don't really know her.
Okay.
Yes, I don't really know her, so I can't say much. But what I can say is that if His Excellency the President found it good enough to put her in a position, that means that she would have a certain kind of experience, qualification, and experience that would enable her to do the work that is being given to her. And I really wish her well in whatever position she's
But, she is the first female minister we've had in the Greater Accra region in a very long while. What sort of signal does that send?
Well, it sends a signal that women are capable. And there's nothing, I mean, there are very few things that you can say women cannot do. So I believe that, she would, I'm sure she should be willing to learn, to be able to learn more about the terrain. And then it requires a lot of coordination. So I think I saw a little bit about her, a write-up about her background, a little bit. She seems to have some qualification that will enable her to do the work. So it's a very challenging area. It's a capital city. And so I believe if she has the ability to work with other people and work with them well, because I think they have these regional coordinating councils, which has the various, within Accra, we also have sub-metros.
Yes.
Before we have the main, the metro itself. So there'll be people, if she has the ability to work with people well, I think that should be
It'll be a plus for her.
It should be a plus for her. And if she's able to succeed, all the better. There are many challenges, sanitation issues, etc., etc. So we are now trying to gather the profile of the various women so that we can learn more about them.
Absolutely.
Earlier ones you mentioned, because I'd had some interaction with them, it was easy for me to
talk about
give
them.
my opinion.
Okay,
yes.
that's okay. Now, SDG 5, is targeting about 50% female representation by 2030. We are seeing some strides per this nomination and according to the affirmative action bill. Is there hope that really by 2030 Ghana would have achieved the SDG 5?
It's very challenging.
Okay.
I mean, from where we are now, I mean, it's going to be very challenging.
That's 5 years from now.
5 years from now is very challenging. But I think that even if we are close, even if we don't get to the 50% parity, and we are close, we hit 40 in every sector by the 2030, it would be good. And incidentally, in the acts, in this very act that we are pushing, we pushed for and got it done. Originally, the target was to get to 50% by the year 2030, in line with the SDGs. Sorry, but a close look at the final one, which is available at Assembly Place, shows that it's been extended to 34.
Okay.
The year 2034, which we were, really not really clear why that was done. We don't know whether that was an error or that was whatever, but there's an international goal, which is 2030. So we think that this law will help us to get there a little bit, but I'm not really sure whether we'll be able to actually hit the parity by the year 2030 as anticipated. But if we are close to it, we'd have achieved something.
Okay.
And would keep working.
We are wrapping up. So what will be your final words?
So my final word is that for us from the Affirmative Action Bill Coalition, we are monitoring the numbers. And so far, what we've seen about the ministers seems to be good. We hope that the trend will not change. And we hope that by the time it's all over, at least at this early stage, would have reached the 30%. We'd also like to see a similar thing when it comes to other appointments, including the state boards, etc., where we are hoping that some of the CEOs, we want to see more and more women. There are other appointments that will be made, ambassadorial and so many others. So we have a lens. We have our goal is to track and to advocate where we think the numbers are coming down. Right now we are happy with what we are seeing. We are hoping that it will go higher and higher, and we'll
Okay.
see more women,
Okay.
so that this government will be able to achieve the target that have been set
Okay.
in the law.
Okay. I just want your expectations briefly. I mean, the presidents are still nominating people. What will be your expectations in the next batch?
So my expectation in the next batch is that we should have more women.
Okay.
Okay. So far from the regional ministers, the original 10 that were appointed, I think there were 3 women.
3 women.
And 7 men.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that in the next set of 6, at least 2 to 3 women should come in.
Okay.
And then that would let us very early get to that target.
Hmm.
For other ministries too, I'm hoping that we'll see more and more women. Also, I hear there's a list out.
Mm-hmm.
A list out, today or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There were
I
new
see a
appointments.
few-
9 appointments made. Nominations made today.
Yes. So we're hoping that my expectations is that there are a lot of capable women out there. So I'm hoping that most of them will be given the opportunity for leadership, so that our country will benefit from the knowledge that women also have, so that to be a more inclusive country that we'll have.
Absolutely.
And women will contribute their quota to the development of this country.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've been engaging Sheila Menka Premo. She's the convener for the Affirmative Action Law Coalition. She's been talking to me about female representation in President Mahama's nomination so far, which signals 28% so far. And the Affirmative Action Bill seeks to target about 30% of female representation. So that has been my conversation with Sheila Menka Premo, Esquire. Thank you very much for your time.
Star News is coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takrady, Zeps 95.9 FM in Zebila, Nissim 100.1 FM in Lamshao, My Star Radio in the USA, also live on Facebook on Star 1035 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Star 103.5 FM. Star News. Informed, in depth, in touch.
From gender, let's talk about or return to the youth-related issues, because I told you that one of the appointments which has generated some excitement is that of George Opariado, the Minister Designate for Youth Development and Empowerment. And in a statement shortly after his nomination, he expressed gratitude to the President. But let's go over the phone lines now and understand how this nomination sits with the Ghana Youth Manifesto Coalition, because we've been joined by the National Coordinator of that coalition, Christopher Wisdom Penu. Chris, thank you very much for your time this evening. This must be some exciting news for you, isn't it?
Hi, good evening, and then a very good evening to your cherished listeners as well. Yeah, this is very exciting, first of all, because we have the Youth Ministry, Youth Development and Empowerment Ministry, created by the President through executive instrument, which we are very happy of, because, of course, one of the major things that the Ghana Youth Manifesto Coalition has been calling for over the years has to be the fact that we want the decouplement of the youth ministry from the youth and sports ministry. And we thank the President so much and commend that action as well. And fast forward that of George Opariado as the minister designate for these ministries. Very interesting and intriguing as well. We are very excited because, first of all, looking at the work he has done in the area of youth development, being the national youth organizer for the NDC, and fast forward, championing the development for the first time in the history of the country, championing the development of the NDC Youth Manifesto, which, of course, most of the factors in that Youth Manifesto of the NDC are basically most of the content from the Ghana Youth Manifesto, of which we are also very grateful of, because already we've met them and we have several discussions with them, and we are very grateful that these have seen the light of the day.
Now, the NDC's, campaign promises were largely also centered on youth development. We also, when they decided to launch the youth manifesto, highlighting the plans they have for the youth. How do you think the Pablo will contribute to youth development in this country?
Interesting, because based on the work he has done over the years, basically looking at the fact that he has championed the development for the first time
the development of the NDC Youth Manifesto for the first time in the history of their political activity. I think it's one of the many successes that we can commend Pablo for. And then aside that, I think his activity when it comes to championing youth development over the years is something that we have to commend him. And then, of course, together with his team, what they've done with the NDC Youth Manifesto. And most especially as well, looking at the fact that the content of the NDC Youth Manifesto cut across. And fast forward to that as well, I just take a glance through his press release with respect to what he's going to do going forward. And I think it's very exciting because, of course, he spoke about the fact that he's going to cash out the bureaucracy when it comes to assessing him. We pray that this is not going to be one of the usual political talk, but as well, his door is indeed going to be open to the Ghanaian youth for us to get in touch and have a conversation about general youth development across the country. As well, he promised as well that he's going to delve into the aspect of humility when he's in office or when he's being after the go-ahead is being given for him to become the minister, the substantive minister. Is going to operate in the space of humility. And we can say that the NDC's party and then the Fourth Republic is built on probity and accountability. We believe that when it's finally endorsed into the office, we are going to hold him accountable. The conversation around that to make sure that youth development and youth empowerment is truly seen through the action of the nominee who has been nominated into this office at the moment.
Okay, now what will be your expectations from him as a youth minister?
As a college, we have a number of expectations. One is like he rightly stated, we want as much as access to him as possible because this cannot be done by one person, okay? So we want access to him. He should be consultative as possible. He should engage more. So that is one aspect that we are going to recommend, that it should be more engaging, especially with the civil society organization. It should be more engaging with youth groups. It should be more engaging with the academia so that we can bridge this gap and then lift young people out of poverty. But the other expectation we are looking at is the alignment of the Youth Employment Agency and the National Youth Security as well. How he's going to align these agencies together and then other agencies. We're also looking at the District Assembly Common Fund that 5% of it has been allocated to the NYA. We're also looking at how he's going to ensure that that is realized or materialized. We're also looking at the fact that he has to work through the process to establish an act for the ministry so that we know that they mean business, because if an act is not established, it means anybody at all can come, and then at the end of the day, this youth ministry can merge with other ministries as well, of which we don't want it to happen, because this is actually out of an act of science and not an act of act. So we want this to be more so established through an act. And then first of all, we are also looking at an aspect where the youth parliament across the various regions, especially the National Youth Parliament, will be properly constituted. And finally, we are also looking forward to the fact that he is going to champion the launch of the Ghana Youth Federation and then make sure that it is operationalized. So these are some of the few things that we want to bring to his notice in respect to other youth needs and priorities that in the days to come we're engaging with.
But now there are some concerns that he may turn the youth ministry into an NDC youth headquarters. This is because people say that he hasn't held any leadership position before on a national level. He's just transitioning from an NDC leader to a national leader. How do you think he should manage himself better, so that he doesn't serve only in the party of the NDC, but in the interest of the youth in general?
I think that is why from the start I said that he has to be consultative enough, and based on his press release, he assured the entire the entire nation, especially young people, that is not going to move in the direction of being partisan. That irrespective of creed, of religion, of social status and political affiliation, that is not going to be considered when it comes to him being in office. That he's going to make sure that his door is open for each and every young people across the country. So at the moment, we just have to give him the benefit of the doubt that, yeah, looking at the fact that he has done a great work with respect to the NDC's manifesto, moving across, engaging a number of young people, including the Ghana Youth Manifesto Coalition. I think for now, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt until he's in office, and then, of course, that's why I spoke about the fact that we are still going to hold him accountable as well to make sure that this ministry is not turned into a partisan headquarters of the youth. Yeah.
I mean, despite these concerns that you have raised, you agree with me that he also needs to satisfy, the NDC youth supporters?
Basically, yes, he may. But the fact of the issue is that you have to understand that it's not just the NDC youth who voted him into power. The number, this year's election, the number has been very clear, the margin has been very clear. We saw the middle class voters and especially non-partisan voters who has been the deciding factor. So we just want to call his attention to it, that how the youth ministry, looking at the fact that over 51% of the voting class is young people, and knowing for a fact that not the entire 51 belong to the NDC, it's just appropriate for him to, based on his press release, move in that dimension and operationalize to bring everybody on the table to be inclusive as possible and not just to satisfy the NDC Youth Week.
Now, we all witnessed, public involvement, high pivotal role in ensuring that the youth go out in their numbers to vote for the NDC. What will be your advice to the NDC supporters, especially when it comes to their expectation of him? Because clearly he cannot satisfy every single one of them.
Yeah, to the NDC youth wing, of course, this country belongs to all of us, irrespective of political party affiliation, either NPP or NDC. The concentration of the youth development and empowerment ministry is not for a political party or a specific political party or for partisanship politics. It's for it's for youth development, national youth development. So let's all bring our ideas, our knowledge to the table and make sure that we help Pablo to make sure this office or this ministry is fully operationalized and functioning as it should be, and not to turn it into a partisan ministry, because what goes around, of course, it surely comes around. And if NPP comes or any other political parties come, they may also. So at this juncture, I just want to indulge the NDC, that the NDC youth especially, that this is a national steering that we must all hold, and make sure that we hold PABs accountable, and not just in terms of partisan affiliation, but national and patriotic reasoning around the table.
All right, thank you very much for speaking to us. That was Christopher Wisdom Penu. He's the national coordinator for the Ghana Youth Manifesto Coalition.
Starr today, first, fast, and credible.
Now, he is a doctor with a prescription for change, the social media star turning heads, and now the youngest nominee for Ashanti Regional Minister, Dr. Frank Amwakohene, is not your typical politician. He's a dynamic blend of healthcare, governance, and digital influence. He proves that leadership can be innovative and fun. Enjoy this report that I put together. The youngest regional nominee, Dr. Frank Amwakohene. I know. This isn't what you typically expect of a regional minister. But Dr. Frank Amwakohene is not just a TikTok minister. He is a medical practitioner and an expert in healthcare, governance and public service. Dr. Amwakohene holds a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery degree from the University of Ghana, a Doctor of Medical Laboratory Science degree from the University of Development Studies, and an MBA from Accra Business School. Beyond entertainment, Dr. Amwakohene uses TikTok as a platform to connect with his nearly 300,000 followers, leveraging the medium for campaigning and engaging the youth, and also providing some health tips.
Don't calculate your cycle using the months, either May, June, July. No. You should study your cycle and know whether you have 21 days, whether you have 22 days, whether you have 23 days, so that you know that in every 21 days, in every 25 days, you will get your menses, and that should be the basis for your question.
Following his nomination as the Ashanti Regional Minister, social media has been flooded with a lot of congratulatory messages for him, and the youth in particular seem to approve of this decision.
Our mothers are suffering and our fathers are suffering. Teachers are suffering and nurses are suffering. Taxi drivers are suffering and market women are suffering. And then grad and Uncle Progress because of a promising national cathedral and they above than a pit. I disappointing Uncle Progress.
Could this be the most emphatic indication that the NDC prioritizes youth representation in its leadership? Reporting for GH1 Television, I am Tutuwaa Danso. That was a brief profile about Dr. Frank Amwakohene, the regional minister designate for the Ashanti region. Away from that, the executive director for the Institute for Democratic Governance, Dr. Emmanuel Akwiti, has reiterated calls for the election of metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives on partisan lines. Well, during a panel discussion on the country's local government system at the 76th annual New Year's School, Dr. Emmanuel Akwiti argued that electing MMDCEs would enhance democratic governance in the country and improve accountability at the local level. Dr. Akwiti explained that for the past 32 years, the country has practiced the current local governance system, adding that it is time to shift focus to electing MMDCs to make it more accountable and responsive to the needs of the constituents.
Could we really have an MMDC elections without parties participating? It's long enough a time for us to assess how these appointments without parties, one party is actually a one-party appointment because the governing party appoints. Are we retaining that? Is that what they meant? That we'll retain it because the party has been involved. What I think we could anticipate and we should have looked out for is that if in 32 years one party appointed MMDCs have not delivered well or met the expectations, what difference would it make if the same system is modified, except that now they are making it formal, that it is direct elections? We could compete. So we could have independent candidates and we could have the governing party's candidates. And we think that it's only going to complicate the misperformance or the poor performance we have. Because what we need to make local government stronger and effective and very oriented towards serving the needs of the people is to have MMDCEs who would compete just like any election we've had. It will not just be party restricted, one part, the president's party restricted, but open it to other parties to contest.
Emmanuel Akwiti is the Executive Director for the Institute of Democratic Governance, IDEG. Now, Dean and Director of Academic Affairs at the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Dr. Vladimir Danso, is calling for stricter guidelines for the issuance of diplomatic and service passports. Well, this follows government's recall of all diplomatic and service passports issued by the erstwhile Akufo-Addo-led administration. According to government, the directive is to ensure the proper use of such documents. A statement signed by Secretary to the President, Dr. Callistus Mahama, directed the Foreign Affairs Ministry to ensure compliance latest by 24th of this month. Now, speaking to Nade Tete on Morning Star, Dr. Danso, Dr. Danso described the move as appropriate.
Whilst others hold diplomatic passport by virtue of working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, others hold service passport because of the services they render to the nation. And these persons must hold themselves very high up. If we abuse it and give it to everybody and anybody else, they can be used for any clandestine activities that will injure the relationship between us and other countries where we visit. And so it must be held very, very dearly and clearly. So I'm not against the withdrawal of such passport from undeserved persons. My biggest worry about all this thing is this. Of course, it is the ministry which issues those passports. If you leave it in the hands of the ministry, I would say we are not going to get it abused again. It's only we are changing the faces of persons whom we have given these to. Let us have the criteria properly, and then we know you qualify, you don't qualify. I tell you, because I also traveled in the past, I traveled a lot, and still I'm traveling. Friends were advising, why don't you go for a service passport? And I looked at it and I said, what do I need a service passport for? My ordinary passport takes me everywhere for the past how many years that I've been traveling. So, some people, when they travel a lot, just believe that service passports will enable them go through protocols and that sort of thing quickly. So, well, for me, I'm not against the withdrawal, honestly speaking. There are some undeserving persons holding diplomatic passports and holding service passports, even including foreigners. There was a time in Ghana we heard about foreigners holding Ghanaian service passports or diplomatic passports. So for me, the withdrawal is in order.
He's also suggesting to government to set stricter guidelines to prevent easy access.
If it is still in the hands of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, then those criteria for obtaining it must be set clearly and then digitalized. So when you apply and you don't try, it could be put under the office of the president because he's the chief diplomat of the country. And you put at the office of the president with the national security advisor perhaps in charge. With implications too. I would have put it there under the presidency where it is digitalized and then there is very little kind of human intervention in that. And that as a security advisor, he will be able to oversee persons who would not qualify and that kind of thing. Alternatively, it is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Once the criteria are set and people apply through the digital process, they may qualify or not qualify, and the computer will just take them out automatically and that kind of thing.
Are there any group that you think that perhaps they can do without the service or diplomatic passport?
There are several of such persons who can do without a diplomatic passport. Chiefs, white chiefs, eminent chiefs who may be doing some diplomatic services for the country. Such persons, if you accord them diplomatic passport, I wouldn't mind. But when you say chiefs and that every chief gets a diplomatic passport, I wouldn't subscribe to that. They said, businessmen and that kind of thing. It depends on what kind of business. If the business is such that an international business that the government has a hand in it, then we will say that we could have them. That's what I'm saying, that let either Parliament or whoever is in charge try and set up the criteria. Because look, holding a diplomatic passport is a very serious thing. You can't just hold a passport and not behave like a diplomat.
That was Dr. Vladimir Danso, who is the Dean and Director of Academic Affairs at the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College. Now, the debate about the legality of President Mahama's Operation Recover or Loot Oral Committee continues unabated by communicators of the two leading political parties, that is the NDC and the NPP. The Member of Parliament for the Swami constituency, John Darko, has extended the debate further by accusing President John Dramani Mahama of having no trust in state institutions mandated to fight corruption. According to him, the offices of the Attorney General and the Special Prosecutor, which are legally mandated for such operations, are more than capable of handling the job of the members of Oral. He spoke with Lily Mohammed earlier on GH Today.
There's no law that gives a president-elect the power to do what he did.
Okay.
There's no law. We don't have that in the Constitution nor the Transition Act. So how do we set up a committee to investigate people when you don't have the power? So whatever will come out of it is a fruit of a poisonous tree. You cannot build something on nothing. The president did not have the authority. The president now, at the time he set up that committee, didn't have the authority to do it. But in any case, our question is, if you so wanted, what was the haste about? You could have waited 7th December. We just had a month from 7th December to 7th January to set up whatever committee you wanted to set. Now you've empowered these people. And on the basis of this committee, people's homes are being invaded. People who are building their houses are being stopped by Kofi Boakye and the group. What country are we building? We are governed by rules and regulations. We are governed by laws. And so for us, we believe that if the president so wants to investigate people, there are constitutionally mandated bodies that can do that. Today, I'm hearing that ORA team is going to Kumasi. And I'm asking, how are they going? Are they going in their private vehicles? Who is paying for their fuel? Are they flying on the state ticket? Why are we spending money on ORA when we have all these state institutions? We have spoken a lot in this country about building our institutions. And you start your presidency, day one, bastardizing these institutions.
John Darko is a member of parliament for the Swami constituency. Now, meanwhile, a member of the NPP's communication team, Fad Osman, has corroborated comments by the Swami MP insisting that the constitution of the committee has no legal backing.
This oral committee is not what they see it to be. They have more to it that they've not told Ghanaians. I think they should come out clear with it. If President Mahama wants to make it a legal body or give it a legal foundation, nobody stops him. He has the authority to give the legal backing to the committee. Then officially they start operations and they'll be sworn in. I hope you know that. This committee was launched or formed when President Mahama had not been inaugurated into office. So he was not president of this country. So what was the authority? So there's no legal backing for the committee, which you do admit to that.
Was Fad Osman, but a member of the NDC's communication team, Dr. Ayer, maintains that the oral is not a prosecutorial committee but a fact-finding one inspired by Article 41F of the 1992 Constitution.
Who said oral is coming to arrest anybody? No. Completely false. You see, the point is that the MPP has decided to wage a war of attrition on Operation Oral, and they will fail at it, having engaged in the worst form of corruption in the history of Ghana in the last 8 years. Humongous levels of graft and sleaze. At a point in time, their own member of parliament, Kennedy Japan, who actually contested as presidential candidate, said MPP people are stealing and looting Ghana like there's no tomorrow. It's Kennedy Japan and NDC member. Look, we will jealously guard this attempt by President Mahama to retrieve everything stolen from the MPP. Oral draws inspiration from Article 41F of the 1992 Constitution, which spells out the duty of a citizen. I read, the duty of a citizen is to protect and preserve public property and expose and combat misuse and waste of public funds and property. The people listed on Operation Oral are citizens of Ghana who have been active anti-corruption crusaders in the last years. Look, Oral is a fact-finding committee.
That was Dr. Ayer there.
Starr coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takrady, Zeps 95.9 FM in Zebila, Nissim 100.1 FM in Lamshao, MyStar Radio in the USA. Also live on Facebook on Starr 103.5 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Starr 103.5 FM. Starr News. Informed, in depth, in touch.
Now, today we revisit a chilling chapter in Ghana's history, the murder of investigative journalist Ahmed Hussein Swali, whose assassination on January 16, 2019 remains unresolved 6 years later. Ahmed was a member of the renowned Tiger Eye private investigation team led by award-winning journalist Anas Aremayaw Anas. His death highlighted the dangers faced by investigative journalists and the continuing challenges to justice and press freedom in Ghana. Now, despite public outrage and repeated calls for justice, the case remains unresolved, casting a shadow over press freedom and accountability in the country. Now, Goma Central MP Kwame Asare-Obeng has stated that he will invoke the powers of Parliament to summon the police administration as his 48-hour ultimatum expires today. Security analyst Dr. Adam Buna has been reacting to the developments.
I think that he has the legislature, he's part of the legislative arm, and he can invoke his right. I think I heard him say he would invoke his right to summon, the Ghana Police Service vis-a-vis the Interior Ministry, and, the AG department. These are institutions that are clothed with, call it power to be able to provide some information. So I think that let's give the Ghana Police Service that benefit of the doubt to be able to get back to A+, or come public and let us know how far they've gone with.
Kwame A+ gave the police administration 48 hours, which elapses today. Well, he's still not heard from the police administration. So when Parliament resumes on 21st, he will invoke the powers of Parliament to summon them.
Well, I think that if he gave them 48 hours, I wouldn't know why the CID needed some more time to be able to give him the needed information. They would definitely have to get back to him and say, we are putting together the information you need, and so give us probably a day or regards to the 48-hour ultimatum he gave them. Then I would call that it's important that let's give them up to the end of this day.
Dr. Adam Buna is a security analyst.
Starr today, first, fast, and credible.
Now, before I take leave of you, let me just talk to you about the fact that the president made an appointment for the National Lottery Authority, and in the person of, I beg your pardon, let me just get a name right. Honorable Abdul Salam Mohammed. Let me just read the statements from the presidency signed by the Executive Secretary to the President, Dr. Callistus Mahama. So it says that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, has, in accordance with Article 1951 of the Constitution and Section 45(1) of the National Lotto Act 2006, Act 722, appointed you as the Acting Chief Executive Officer of the National Lottery Authority, pending receipt of the constitutionally required advice of the board of the authority, given in consultation with the Public Services Commission. Your appointment takes effect from January 15, 2025, and I take this opportunity to congratulate you formally on your appointment. Please accept the President's best wishes. This is to Mohammed Abdul Salam. But this appointment has sparked a lot of controversy online because people say that, he's a Muslim and the Muslims do not believe in lottery. But in the coming days, we see how this development unfolds. And that has been our news for you today. Thank you very much for your time. For more news updates, kindly please visit starfm.com.gh. I'm Tutuwaa Danso. This bulletin was produced by Echo Anan and then Prince Isian and Emmanuel Donko and Joey and Zuleha assisted with the production as well. We are back tomorrow with more news updates. Have a good evening.